Imagine coming home from grocery shopping to find police cars at your house already putting up yellow crime scene tape. That is reportedly how the parents of alleged killer Jared Loughner found out what happened in Tucson. And my colleague Barbara Walters joins me now with more on this story. Barbara.
Good evening, Elizabeth. Well, of course, one of the big questions this week is, were there warning signs about Loughner? Should the parents or authorities have known? Over the years, I've interviewed many broken-hearted parents of killers and the killers themselves, and so often the parents ask themselves, what did I miss? What should I have known to save my child and the victims? What warning signs should all of us know? Behind the smiles, there were secrets, but there were also signs. And this week, several of those who knew Jared Loughner before his shooting spree described their own fears and apprehension.
He had a temper problem. He used to scare me sometimes.
I told my mom, I said, he's probably a serial killer.
Psychiatrist Dr. Gail Saltz has studied the secrets of murderers. Are you surprised that there were warning signs and yet nothing specific was done?
Unfortunately, I'm not surprised at all. People often don't realize that what they're seeing is a symptom as opposed to adolescence. Particularly in young men. There are, in retrospect, often many warning signs.
Oh, okay, in this video, yeah, particularly in young men. You hear that? Particularly in young men. Yeah, okay, well, let's watch up, because I got some things I want to show you. But let's finish watching what else they got to show us, and then I've got something to show you.
But those same signs can be seen in many, many people who never go on to commit anything like this.
So how do you know? Sometimes the answers can only be found in a killer's own words, like those of this now infamous man who committed one of the most vile crimes imaginable.
And then all of a sudden he said 5-6 shots and that was it.
Mark David Chapman waited 12 years to explain himself in just one face-to-face interview in Attica prison. Why did you kill John Lennon?
I thought by killing him, I would acquire his fame.
Chapman left clues that would only be interpreted in hindsight. For example, when Chapman checked out of his last job, he signed his name as John Lennon and became increasingly delusional.
I asked Satan to give me the power to kill John Lennon. I heard this voice. Not an audible voice, but an inaudible voice saying over and over, do it, do it, do it, do it. I guess that was me inside, and I fired at his back 5 steady shots.
And he talked to me about the need he had to kill John Lennon, but other people didn't know that he was having these very strong impulses or images. So what could have been done?
This is a problem because people with mental illness who have even a tiny bit of insight that the thoughts they're having would not be okay with other people don't reveal them. And in that case, frankly, it's very hard for anybody to do anything.
But that was not the case with Jared Loughner. There were signs, but his parents missed them. In a written statement, Jared Loughner's parents said, "We don't understand why this happened." That thought was shared by the mother and father of another notorious shooter. March 30th, 1981, a gunman shot President Reagan, his press aide Jim Brady, and 2 others. His would-be assassin, John Hinckley Jr., was then 25 years old, the youngest son in what seemed a picture-perfect all-American family, loving and successful. But he had dropped out of college, was deeply depressed, and started collecting guns. You both feel that there are certain warning signals that you have now learned. What?
Withdrawal into oneself and away from other people, to become a loner. And secondly, what they call disordered thinking, irrational thoughts.
The Hinkleys followed their psychiatrist's advice, tough love, and they threw John out of the house.
And I said, okay, you're on your own. And that was the last I saw of him until after the shooting.
At the trial, you burst into tears. Do you think it's your fault?
This is the worst mistake of my life. I didn't understand what was wrong with him. I didn't think about mental illness. And I sent a helpless human being out into the world to try to cope when he was totally unable to cope.
These were very nice, productive, normal parents who loved their son. Should he have known? What should he have done?
Unfortunately, they didn't know, as they said, much at all about mental illness. It wasn't in the mainstream. We didn't talk about it.
In this case, the parents did know their 15-year-old son Sam was seriously disturbed. He had shown bizarre behavior, even torturing the family's cats and dogs. But when Sam's parents desperately sought help, they were rebuffed at every turn. First, by a community crisis center.
They said that I was probably the one that needed the help and not him.
Next, they turned to a family court judge, with no success.
You're not a psychopath. No? So you have some adjustment problems. I'm going to make your parents take you home. Today.
4 days later, Sam was home alone when his 11-year-old neighbor rang the doorbell to sell candy for the PTA. Sam invited the boy inside,
the body of a young Caucasian male,
then tortured and strangled him. His body was later discovered in the nearby woods. Can you tell me what that was like for you, what you felt?
Well, I just wanted to just die. I just wanted to be left alone.
What was it like for you?
I gave up. I just gave up on it. I decided at that point in my life that that was the end of what was happening with my son.
They took their son to authorities who said, he just needs a little more attention, or give him more love, or be stricter. So authorities fail.
Clearly, this was a mistake, but there are many children who don't seem to feel any empathy. That's a very concerning sign that leads potentially to sociopathy, and that is a kid that needs help.
We're talking about 3 murderers and 1 alleged murder. Each case is different, but is there a common thread?
Well, I think what we can take away from all these cases is that if people would have a lower threshold for reaching out to somebody who seems to be foundering, we could be making interventions during that critical window at the beginning of an illness when treatment can make a huge difference, a complete difference actually, in the trajectory of that illness and in the fallout that could happen later.
It was like he didn't care about anything. Like he had this kind of attitude that it didn't matter. Nothing mattered.
But it did matter. There was no intervention, and the result was tragedy.
Yes, it did matter, didn't it? And there was no intervention, and the results was tragic. That's right. You saw them guys? Yeah, all guy killers. Here, let me show you something. Remember this?
Are you surprised that there were warning signs and yet nothing specific was done?
Unfortunately, I'm not surprised at all. People often don't realize that what they're seeing is a symptom as opposed to adolescence, particularly in young men.
That's right, particularly in young men. So what she means by that, what she's really saying when she says particularly young men, is she's directing that back that men are the ones that have the most mental issues. Men are the ones that are more likely to go over the edge and kill than women are. So let's take a look and see if that theory is true. So what did we see there? Yeah, we saw a little bit of fairness, didn't we? You know, the reason I showed you that is because this is how it always works with mainstream media. It's always one-sided. Have you ever noticed the reports of domestic abuse? They don't give you both sides of the story. They give you one side of the story. What they want you to hear. They don't want you to hear both sides. They wouldn't want you to realize that both genders are equally involved, that both genders are equally doing the same things. It's like when they say how men are always just child molesters, but yet if you really look into the statistics, you'll find there's as many women as there is men. But you don't see that on mainstream media. You don't see that in your news. You don't see it in your local newspaper. No. We've got to keep one gender above the other. We've got to keep them painted up as being angel. That's right. They just forgot to tell you that halo is held up by the horns of Satan, of pure evil. Okay? Because it's both sides, okay? But I got a lot more to go when it comes to talking to killers, because see, I've been telling you for a long time. The one thing that we do right is we manage to create our own killers. That's right. You think these people are just born mental, don't you? That's the cop-out. That's the easy way around it. That's the easiest solution. That way you ain't got to think about nothing. You ain't got to take any responsibility before you treat others, right? All you got to do is just say that they were mental. They were mental. That way you can pass it off. You don't want to stop to think about how you treat one another. And you say, well, it don't matter how we treat somebody. They don't give them a right. It does matter. It matters a whole lot how you treat somebody. And when you say it don't matter, well, this is why it keeps happening. Because it does matter. And you people need to get your brains out of you know what when it comes to this. But anyhow, I'm going to be making a part 2 of this. So follow me on over to part 2 and I'll see you there.